Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We begin in the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful. In this segment, I want to address a popular misconception in the minds of a lot of people. It's become a sort of a myth that is based on a set of fabricated narrations, which are widely accepted as being fabricated by the top-level scholars of Ilm al-Rijal. In Al-Kafi, there happens to be a whole bab, a section that contains around 9 narrations. All of them, in some way or the other, try to prove or try to claim that the correct tafsir of the last verse of Suratul Qadr, تَنَزَّلُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ وَالرُّوحُ فِيهَا بِإِذْنِ رَبِّهِمْ مِنْ كُلِّ أَمْرٍ سَلَامٌ هِيَ حَتَّى مَطْلَعِ الْفَجْرِ. This verse talks about the descent of the angels. The angels of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala descend with every command. And so the Ghali who invented these narrations tried to put it in the mouth of Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam, as well as other Imams, that the angels descend on the Imam of the time. So a lot of shuyukh then and speakers then try to tie this and connect this with the 12th Imam to say that the angels, obviously, when Allah says تَنَزَّلُ الْمَلَائِكَةِ, they descend, they have to descend somewhere. And it cannot be assumed that they would be descending on sinners or on regular human beings. So therefore, we need to postulate the presence of an Imam, a Ma'soom Imam, on whom these angels descend. So we can go into an in-depth Rijali discussion. The scholars of Rijal are very clear. This entire chapter is considered to be fabricated. It's based on fabrications of a narrator by the name of Al-Hasan ibn al-Abbas ibn al-Harish, or Huraysh, as some claim the correct pronunciation to be. But in this segment, I want to keep it short. The Rijali discussion can be quite long because there are a lot of scholars who have exposed how these narrations are a fabrication. In this segment, I just want to present to you the research-based view of Ayatullah Shaykh Muhammad Asif Muhsiny, a contemporary and colleague of Ayatullah Syed Ali Hur Kamoonpuri in the Hawza of Najaf. He studied under Ayatullah Syed Abul Qasim al-Khuy. He was one of his top students in Ilm al-Rijal. And he has authored an encyclopedia entitled Mujam al-Ahadith al-Mu'tabara. And in that encyclopedia, which is this one right here, this is volume 5, Al-Juz al-Khamis. It's published in Iran. If you come to pages 288 and 289, you see Ayatullah Muhsiny mentions an authentic narration from Al-Khisal on the authority of Al-Fudayl, who narrates that كان أبو جعفر عليه السلام إذا كانت ليلة 21 و23 أخذ في الدعاء حتى يزول الليل فإذا زال الليل صلى. So this is a narration about Imam Abu Ja'far al-Baqir alayhi salatu wasalam, and what he used to do on the nights of the 21st of Shahr Ramadan and 23rd of Shahr Ramadan. These are obviously the odd nights of the last Ashra of Shahr Ramadan, in which we are told that we should try to search for Laylatul Qadr. And searching for Laylatul Qadr means you should spend the entire night in worship with the hope that it coincides with Laylatul Qadr. So this narration tells us that Imam Abu Ja'far al-Baqir alayhi salam used to spend the entire night, the 21st night, the 23rd night, these entire nights, he would be busy in worship, and he used to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then he used to offer prayers. So he would be busy with this the entire night. Now, after mentioning this authentic narration, Ayatullah Shaykh Muhammad Asif Muhsiny writes, أقول, he says, I say, الرواية تنفي احتمال نزول الملائكة عليهم عليهم السلام لعرض كل أمر حكيم عليه وعلى سائر الأئمة عليهم السلام. He says this authentic narration denies or negates or cancels the possibility of angels descending upon them, peace be upon them. Yani, the possibility of angels descending on the Imams is negated by this narration. So he says the angels cannot descend on the Imams because of this narration to present kullu amrin hakim. This is the phrase that is used in Surah Dukhan, yeah? Fiha yufraqu kullu amrin hakim. When Allah talks about the blessed night on which the Quran was revealed, the night of Qadr, He says it's the night in which every decisive matter is decided. And so the narrations of the Ghulat claim that every matter that Allah decides, every decisive affair that is settled by Allah on the night of Qadr is then taken by the angels who descend upon the Imam and then present all these decrees of Allah to the Imam. So that's how he becomes a knower of the unseen, and he knows basically everything that's going to happen in that particular year. So Ayatullah Shaykh Muhammad Asif Muhsiny says this is impossible in light of the narration that we shared above. Why? Because it's not possible that the angels would come to any Imam or to all the Imams. وَإِلَّا لَمْ يَشْتَغِلْ بِالدُّعَاءِ وَالْعِبَادَةِ. Because otherwise, if this was true, if the claim of the Ghulat was true, then the Imam would not spend the entire night busy in dua and worship and offering prayers. Instead, بَلْ يَشْتَغِلُ بِتَلَقِّي تَفْصِيلِ حَوَادِثِ السَّنَةِ الْمُحْكَمَةِ. Instead, the Imam alayhi salatu wasalam would have to stay away from his worship and dua and prayers, and instead he would have to sit and receive all those angels who would be descending upon his house to receive from them the details of all the events and incidents that would be taking place in the coming year. So basically, Ayatullah Muhsiny's argument is that the authentic narrations about the Imams of Ahlul Bayt are informing us that the Imams spend their entire night in worship on Laylatul Qadr during the great nights of Shahr Ramadan. So the fact that they're so preoccupied with worship, with prayer, with dua, makes it impossible for them to be involved in any other task which the Ghulat are trying to impute and attribute to them. The Ghulat are trying to give us the picture that instead of worship and dua and nightly prayers, the Imam is sitting in his house and he's hosting and receiving all of the angels who are coming down with information about what's going to be happening in the coming year. So basically, using this one single authentic narration from the Imams, Ayatullah Shaykh Muhammad Asif Muhsiny dismisses and disproves the reliability of the narrations claiming otherwise. And this authentic narration that Ayatullah Shaykh Muhammad Asif Muhsiny is sharing is from the book Al-Khisal by Shaykh Saduq. Those of you who don't have access to it can refer to Mafatih al-Jinan. Mafatih al-Jinan, Maulana, is a book that a lot of us have access to, very easy access to. It's in everyone's homes, or it's easily available in the masjid. So if you come to Mafatih al-Jinan, the narration where it talks about Dua Abi Hamza al-Thumali, which you people recite during the nights of Shahr Ramadan. So here, look at the riwayah from Al-Misbah and Abi Hamza al-Thumali رحمه الله أنه قال كان زين العابدين عليه السلام يصلي عامة الليل في شهر رمضان فإذا كان في السحر دعا بهذا الدعاء. He says Imam Zainul Abidin. So the previous narration was talking about Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam. This narration is talking about Al-Imam Zainul Abidin, Ali ibn al-Husayn alayhi salam. يصلي عامة الليل. What was his routine during the nights of Shahr Ramadan? يصلي عامة الليل. He would spend the entire night praying in qiyam في شهر رمضان. فإذا كان في السحر. And then when sahar time would come, دعا بهذا الدعاء. He would invoke Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and supplicate to him with this dua that is known as Dua Abi Hamza al-Thumali. So even this narration, the narration of Dua Abi Hamza al-Thumali, is similar to this narration, authentic narration from Al-Khisal. Both of these narrations essentially are telling us the same thing, which is that the Imams of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salatu wasalam used to spend their nights preoccupied with worship, with qiyam, with dua, and therefore they did not have time for the kind of false claim that the ghulat are trying to attribute to them, which is that they are trying to show that on the nights of Laylatul Qadr, the Imam receives all those angels that Allah talks about in Surah Al-Qadr when He says, تَنَزَّلُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ وَالرُّوحُ فِيهَا. The ghulat, they postulate that these angels and the ruh, the spirit, must be descending upon someone. And so that someone has to be the Imam Ma'asum. So the ghulat, as you know, as per their modus operandi, their attempt was to fit in the Imam wherever there is any kind of gap or any kind of loophole or any kind of space, you just plug in the Imam there. But as we know, the Imam's routine does not permit any kind of time to be given to angels who come and who bring all the reports of what's going to happen the next year, because they're too busy making dua and offering salah and praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for their own benefit and to ward off evil and harm from them from the coming year. So that basically is a very short logical response and logical expose of the falsity and falsehood of narrations in Al-Kafi, which claim otherwise, and which unfortunately many of our Zakirin, sometimes some of the shuyukh from the mimbar, especially the Irfanis, they are about the only scholars within Shi'ism who believe in these narrations and try to promote them. You have some others who try to promote that Laylatul Qadr is Sayyidah Fatima, salamullahi alayha, very deep, esoteric, all these kinds of ghulu narrations. Inshallah, if we get the opportunity in Al-Bahth al-Rijali, when we go into Ilm al-Rijal, we can dissect these narrations in Al-Kafi. There are 9 of them, an entire chapter, and the entire chapter is considered to be a fabrication. And it's one of the criticisms against Al-Kulaini as to why he included this. Obviously, the content is something that is very favorable to a person with a ghulu kind of mindset. And the Irfanis would also love this kind of narration because it has all the elements in it, divine appointment and everything that they want to believe about the Imams is there in this narration. But the interesting thing is that even the editors of Al-Kafi, in the footnotes, they write that the primary narrator of this hadith is, of this set of ahadith is completely unreliable. He has been discredited by all the prominent scholars of Ilm al-Rijal in the classical period, all the way from An-Najashi to Ibn al-Ghadairi. And then also in the modern period, he has been discredited by both Ayatullah Asid Abu al-Qasim al-Khoi and Ayatullah Shaykh Muhammad Taqi Tustari, as we will demonstrate inshallah ta'ala when we have the opportunity to go into Al-Bahth al-Rijali. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.